Hi guys and welcome to my first Stocks FC video, and today we're talking about my flexible portfolio plan. So I do have a lot more quantities of certain players than what is shown on this plan, but it's sort of my long-term plan to get to at some point. Saying that, I am very responsible in terms of selling players back to the market. I do, as a disclaimer, I do hold a massive quantity of Reece Jameses. I just wanted to put that out there. It's not that I'm going to be selling these in large quantities. I'm very happy to hold him as a long-term hold in vaster quantities than what I've got in this plan. But I just thought I'd put it out there just so everyone knows and is aware, and transparency and stuff. So this plan is very fluid. So let's go on to the first part of it. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for the player's ability. So this is how I value players effectively. Players' ability by them, and then combined with their matrix suitability, then combined with their age, and then combined with the supply. So as you may or may not know, supply defines how much rewards they will get. So say, for example, if Haaland has 3 times as many shares as Harry Kane, say if Harry Kane gets into Team of the Week, his payout will be 3 times more than Haaland's. So supply is something that you have to bear in mind. Players with lower supply who do well are going to do very well. Age is obviously relevant because you've got more years left for them to, or more weeks and more months and more years to play to then get rewards. So age is important, all being well with the platform's longevity, which, it should be. I'll make a video going into that a bit later. So the next one is matrix suitability. So are they going to do well on this scoring matrix? So you can see it here on the right hand side. So our players going to be scoring goals, getting assists and key passes. So for example, most defensive mids are probably not going to be suited to this matrix very well because you get own goals against you or clean. I think goals conceded is only defenders, but you're more likely to pick up yellow cards. You're less likely to score goals. And so on and so on. So, does the player suit the matrix? And then obviously general ability. Is what the player's done in the previous seasons sustainable? Are they a higher tier quality of player? So for example, Mitrovic, for example, he's currently been IPO'd. Is he actually a standard of elite Premier League striker? Even though last year in his stats, he was the 6th best average scorer compared to this matrix from the data that I've seen. But is he actually that level of striker? Is he the 6th best striker in the Premier League? No, he's not. So is that going to be sustainable in terms of, his ability? Is he good enough? Is he actually world class? Where you might prefer to go for a player who you think is of a higher standard. Obviously a Kane, a Haaland. Even though their numbers might be lower, if you're looking at data from a month's point of view or half a season, is the player ability actually better? So of course that comes into it. And then I've got attacking mids, wing backs and goalkeepers. So midfielders, obviously it doesn't suit defensively minded midfielders, apart from maybe Rodri. But players that will get into the team of the week because they've got an advantage, basically. So wing backs or very attacking fullbacks will do much better than centre backs and defensive fullbacks because it doesn't really reward defensive actions particularly highly, I don't believe. And so, if there's any attacking mids, I'm more likely to be interested in them, even if they're, of less ability or whatever, because I think they're going to suit the matrix better. And goalkeepers, because they don't get substituted, I think they could be really good. So I'm going to buy every goalie in slightly larger quantities. And then moving on to the last point here, I've got buying at least 1 share of everyone. I plan to hold, have like a 30 outfield player portfolio of players in larger quantities. And then everyone else, I want between 1 and 5 shares, basically. Because I just think it's a good strategy with the way that the supply works and having unfavourable players, selling them when they've done well after the rewards. or selling a couple of them if I've got 5. You know what I mean? I just think it's going to be a good strategy. So yeah, moving on. So this was sort of my goalkeeper plan. I may well change this at some point. So on the left, I want 25 of each of these, and then on the right hand side, I believe they'd be slightly more risky, whether it be age, what I've gone through before. So yeah, the bottom 5, for example, I think are the most likely teams to get relegated. So Sheffield United, Burnley and Luton, as well as Bournemouth. Dean Henderson as well, Nottingham Forest. I don't know how well they're going to do. And then obviously, Leno did really well, I think, last year. If you were going to put it back on the data, put the data back, and if Stock FC existed back then. But once again, it's Fulham, so, this is why the quantities are a little bit skewed towards the higher level teams, apart from obviously Jordan Pickford. Pickford, I think, just under Sean Dyche, you're going to get clean sheets for days. So that's why Pickford's made it into the top end of that. But yeah, I think goalkeepers are going to be valuable because they don't get substituted. But then you've got to remember they can't win in-play dividends, or it's very rare for them to do that, because the in-play are for goals, key passes and assists. So it's going to be quite hard for any goalkeeper to consistently get those sort of rewards. You don't get anything for clean sheets like you could on FI previously. But yeah, moving on, because I talked too much in the first time I tried to record this. Outfield players, this list changes all the time. I've just put players who I thought of as of a few days ago. It does change. The order is not specific. As you can see, I'm getting 50 of every single one of these players. There's going to be players that you completely disagree with. Some players that don't make my 30 outfield players that you're going to be screaming at me. For example, I don't have Grealish in my top 30. I'm sure a lot of people, he's one of the players that people really want to have. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of attacking fullbacks. There's set piece takers. There's players that take a lot of shots. And then you've got high quality youngsters like Gakpo. Bentancur scored very well in scoring matrix, as did Isaac, and he's obviously a young striker. Mason Mount also attacking mid. No, he's not had the best season, and we don't know where his future lies, but that's why he's on there. Moving on to the next lot. I think that a lot of people will be shocked by this. I do have a lot of power on the age side of things, so that's why Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, Kane and Bruno are so low down compared to where they actually are. I think a lot of these players are going to be consistent winners, but just because of their age and how I'm looking at Stocks FC, I'm not looking at this as a short-term thing. I'm looking at it as a bit of a longer picture, as I do believe this in the sustainability side of things. So yeah, for example, having Darwin Núñez in line with Salah is ridiculous because he might not even play particularly much games. But he does play for a top team. He is younger. When he does do well, X, Y, Z. But yeah, Sancho's in there as well, just because my love affair for Sancho from the FAO days. I literally have to have him. Rodri's one of those ones that, as a defensive midfielder, he does actually score a lot of goals because he plays in such a dominant team. So he could do quite well, I believe. And obviously he's younger in the age, hence why he's so high. If he was like, I'm not going to have Casemiro despite him having, maybe a similar sort of goal return last season. But because of the age and the fact that, he plays for the most dominant team in England, on paper at least, Rodri's in there. And Garnacho's in there because, he's basically the best young wonder kid in the league at the moment. Things change very quickly, as we've seen. If you were part of FI, they changed all the time. Maddison's in there. Hopefully he gets a good move, but, it's up in the air at the moment, but hopefully that happens. And then moving on to the final 10. So, should we go through them individually? Kulusevski, every time I see him, he reminds me of Kevin De Bruyne in terms of his technical ability. Hopefully he plays a little bit more central, in a right forward position, as you have a wide Pedro Porro as an attacking overlapping fullback in I can't remember his name, Postecoglou's new tactics at Tottenham. But I really like Kulusevski as well as age. Reece James, like I said, I hold a lot more than 100. I'm happy to hold a lot more than 100 for the first season. But, this is sort of like a long-term plan to get to. I may not end up with all these share quantities or whatever, and I'm going to end up, currently I hold a lot more Reece James than Martinelli's in this. But, if I can take profit as and when the market has the demand for it, I will slowly sell into it. But yeah, there's no rush to get this. I do have basically enough funds to afford this portfolio without having to sell. So that's the plan, or at least I have from rough estimates of player prices. Things can change though, so yeah. Rashford, Martinelli, I think they're very similar. Foden, I think he will, he isn't playing at the moment, so he might go under the radar a little bit, but top player. If he comes on as a midfielder, I'm going to love him. Same with Nkunku. If Nkunku's a forward, I'm not going to like him as much, and he's going to drop down probably to like 50 shares on one of him. But if he's a midfielder, attacking midfielder in that sort of, modern day number 10 role, I think he's going to do really well. Odegaard as well, everyone knows he's brilliant. Saka, he might end up being a forward. Hopefully he's a midfielder, as he has played wing back before, so maybe that might drag his position down, but he'll probably be a forward, so he's competing with the likes of Haaland, Kane and Salah, who are obviously going to be the favourites for the team of the season. And then moving on to the top two, Trent, I don't see him moving outside the Prem, and Haaland is Haaland. Both of those two are numbers machines, so I need to have more quantity of them than anyone else. Also, their supply in the market is probably going to be higher than pretty much every other player in Stocks FC. Depending on when they get IPO'd, of course. If there's 10,000 users down the line when, say, Darwin Núñez gets added, then it might well be that Darwin Núñez sells a lot more than Haaland and Trent Alexander-Arnold. But, yeah, so that's basically my portfolio plan. Hopefully this is sort of giving you an idea of how you could lay out yours, or just get your head around it. Of course, you're not going to agree with my players. You're not going to agree with the order. Not even I do agree with this order. Things change all the time with football, especially when you're watching it. It's changed multiple times since, I started creating a list. I had Ruben Diaz on it. I had Dalot on it. But, things change. Wan-Bissaka's now playing. Now I've looked into the matrix a bit more. I see that centre-backs aren't really quite going to be as good. So, yeah. But anyway, that's the end of the video, guys. Hope you've liked it. Leave a like if you can. That'd be great. And, yeah, cheers. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.